Yeah, what would you like to date? Because you're a GP, you're on social media all the time. You ain't really got that much time. So like, you got loads of incredible things. And if I was a female, obviously I would have loved to have hung out with you. But like at the same time, like you wouldn't be there.
Welcome to Happy Millionaire, a show about how to make profit with a positive impact and stay happy along the way.
You were getting incredible publicity, right? You had appearance on BBC, you had a best-selling book, you're on Instagram, and I still remember this, right? You told me where like your mum and dad, even though you're like on TV, they'll be like, "Hey, Rupy, like, oh, when are you going to be a GP again?" So like it's weird, but like you've got supportive parents, but it's weird, but people don't know that. People don't know it. So like, I'd love for you to like, what's your analysis on that? Like, why do you think, even though you're doing good, you're making good money and you've got publicity and your parents are still saying, hey, go back to being a GP. Why do you think that happened?
That was kind of a low point actually for me. That was a really low point. That was was a moment where I was like, oh man, am I doing all that I can do to actually have a big impact if my own parents can't even appreciate what I'm doing? Like, I remember chatting to my sister about that. I was crying actually. I was pretty low because it was, you described it exactly right. Like Sunday Times best-selling book, and I was doing all this stuff, and it was a bit of TV and stuff. And then like my dad's constantly asking, okay, so like how many times have you been in the hospital this week? Like what's your schedule looking like and that kind of stuff. And I think they're very much tied to this, even though they're both in business, they're very much tied to this idea of, look, we've done all the hard work, we've done all the grit. So you can go to a top tier university and do something that makes everyone proud, something that you're aligned to, and something that the world respects, which is being a doctor. There is literally no other way. Even if like you're the next like Jeff Bezos, there'd probably still be just as proud if I was a GP who, had a little portfolio of properties on the side and, trundled into my surgery week in, week out, like seeing patients. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a really noble position. It's a really privileged position to be in, where you're a doctor. You see most people at their most vulnerable. The stories you hear, the people who confide in you, it's an amazing vocation. But for me, as is probably exemplified by chatting on this podcast, it's about having big impact. It's, that effective altruism sort of mindset where you're trying to go for the big goal and you're trying to achieve that scale and magnitude that you just cannot do if I was focused on being a one-on-one clinician. I've come around to this idea and this sort of identity crisis that I had recently, because I feel that I've invested so much. I've gone into university. I've built up this brand. I've worked day and night so I can be my own boss. Right, I work probably harder than most people would, in maybe not medicine, but in other sort of 9-to-5 jobs or whatever. I work much harder than that. Much harder than people who work for other people. But I do so on my time, and I feel like I've earned that right, and I've earned that privilege, and I don't want to let that go. I'll never let that go. And so once you have that sort of hook and that entrepreneurial edge, you don't want to let that go, and that's kind of what's dragged me in this direction.
Yeah, no, and I feel like this is where I feel like having a really strong purpose is so critical, whether you're got your own company or whether you're working for someone, because there will be certain situations like this, your own parents, questioning your decision, or there'll be times if you're working for someone, you might get a lucrative offer somewhere else, but it all ties back to why are you currently doing the work you're doing, right? And that's why purpose is so important. And this is why I've invested in several companies and I've built my own, and I always say that, hey, look, just make sure that purpose is really deeply felt, because trust me, that is really that is what's going to tie everyone coming back. It's like and that has to be felt in the heart. So I really appreciate you sharing that so openly, because I think people don't realize that even when you do great, there's still your closest people question the decision from in a loving, caring way, but it's still
Totally.
questioning, right?
Yeah.
So
absolutely. It always comes back to like this loving, caring position. And I think that there are two ways, and this is quite interesting because I had Julia Samuels on my podcast talking about why families drive us mad, and they do drive us mad. It's because that could come from someone else, and you'll like brush it off, but because it's from people that love you so dearly and have your vested interests, for some reason we just react really negatively, and they know what buttons to push and all the rest of it. But speaking really frankly, and I know we've spoken about this in private, but I think it's important for other people to realize, is that if you're really aligned to that mission, it no longer becomes about the money, so to speak. I mean, obviously it does to a certain extent, but I could live a very comfortable life earning far more than I would do as a GP by just doing podcast, bit of speaking events, some of the books, and a bit of TV, easy, like 400, 500K a year just from that on a minimal spend. But I've chosen the ridiculously hard entrepreneurial route by sacrificing that lifestyle to build a tech company where it could all go to zero and I have nothing to show for it apart from like a few nicely branded logos and a podcast on Apple. But do you know what I mean? Like, so they're like, and that's why you're right. When you hone in on that mission, that's going to bring you alignment, and you have a filter, and so you know what to say yes to and know what to say no to. So I feel like we're given a few gems here. I think that the core, if I could like anchor it on a core message, it's like knowing what the mission is and how you get alignment in that. It's really important.
Yeah, that why and that purpose is like literally the, if you look at a tree, it's like literally the trunk, right? So that has to be so strong. And I think, I just want to share something that I've definitely reflected on. Like, I feel that with our parents or family, like, I love all of them. But what happens is once a thought gets really strong in them, and it's like, I think, I love studying the brain, and like everyone probably knows some of the core basics, but like our brain are these wires, and, a thought, once you have a thought, it creates a small wire in your head. And I feel like the thought of having a stable job is a wire which is there, and the thing is, in the past that was such an important thought that it's just like becomes so strong in people's minds that, hey, have a 9-to-5 job, have a 9-to-5 job, have a 9-to-5 job, that's good, and that wire is so strong that with this new modern age where like being an entrepreneur is possible, like unfortunately that wire is so strong that it just can't be removed and broken. So that's really why I feel that the older generation are still stuck in their ways, is because that wire is so strong. It's not their fault. It's just, I think the awareness that, look, times are changing, I think is really important. So yeah, anyway, I just want to share that. And we are going to talk about your app, which I think is such an incredible project. But before I do that, I know from experience that when you were building out the Doctor's Kitchen brand, it was bloody hard. I remember speaking to you in some great times and some dark times, right? In that, and most people will know this as well now, that, there's loneliness, there's periods of unhappiness, like our relationships get impacted, our dating sucks.
Dating sucked for a long time.
Different themes. Yeah. So why don't we go with dating, actually? So you're a good-looking lad who's on social media. You get the occasional DMs when you're single. But I know you weren't dating, because I was like, dude, what's going on? And what was that period like? Because you're probably attending some stag do's, you're probably going to weddings, and like, where's Rupy's plus one? She's not there. What was that period like? And what was your dating life like? Again,
it was tough, because not only do you get this sort of like pressure to go back to being a GP or like, a standard professional job. Nothing wrong with that at all, but like we said, not aligned to what I wanted to do. I was also getting pressure around, okay, settle down now. Like, you're in the 30s. When I started Doctor's Kitchen, I was starting age 30. So in our sort of culture, that's kind of when you're having your first kid. I know things are changing and becoming a lot more progressive about this, but like it was definitely something I had a bunch of conversations about with my parents. And every time we'd meet, it's like, have you met so-and-so's daughter? Or like, what are you doing? And, all these different things.
All the apps.
All the apps as well. And like, my work balance at that time, I'm afraid to say, because I know I'm in the wellness industry and I'm actively advocating against this, but it was terrible. Like, I would be working as a GP pretty much full time in the early days. So I was basically moonlighting by doing the doctor's kitchen stuff. I'd go to work, 7:30 to get, because I was at a GP practice in North London. It's quite a while away from me. I'd get there, work the whole day. I'd come back. I'd cook. I would do social media. I'd do emails. I'd work until like 9. I was writing my book at the time, so I was doing all the research for that. And then I'd repeat the same thing the next day. And sometimes I would do a Facebook Live in the morning before I'd go to work as well. I remember doing that like week on week.
Yeah. I remember those.
So,
I remember those.
Just constantly brand building. So, there was this like treadmill that I needed to keep on going. And I don't know how I got up with that energy, because I don't think I could do with my work balance now, whilst not doing clinical medicine. I still struggle to do social media stuff because, all these other commitments I have. So, and at the weekends it was just slammed, man. So like I didn't even have the opportunity to go out and date.
Yeah.
Even if I would start, I remember I remember like having conversations with girls and be like, I just don't know when we can meet up. Like it's going to be tough. And yeah.
What would you like to date? Because you're a GP, you're on social media all the time. You ain't really got that much time. So like, you've got loads of incredible things. And if I was a female, obviously I would have loved to have hung out with you. But like at the same time, like you wouldn't be there. So it'd be like, you'd be probably really shit as well. So like, I wasn't great.
I wasn't great. I remember having some pretty tough conversations actually with people. I kind of feel embarrassed about it. I'm like, I kind of let a lot of people down. I learned to be very upfront actually quite early on, just through some sort of like, the route to unhappiness, as Mo Gaudat puts it in his equation, is where your perception of reality is mismatched with your expectations of reality. And so if you have this reality if you have this perception and expectation mismatch, that's what can lead to friction, right? So the expectation, if I didn't set those early on, that that the reality is I'm not trying to ghost people, but I'm very hard to like pin down. And it's not because I'm like going all these other dates, it's because literally I'm dating my brand right now. Like I'm in a pretty permanent relationship with my company of one. And so that was kind of difficult. But one of the things actually that really attracted me to my fiance is that she got that straight away. I remember there was one incident where I was going to bail last minute. I was like, look, I've got this book deadline. I'm so behind.
You weren't dating while you're dating her or together?
No, when we're dating. It was like, I think it was our second or third day. I want to say really, really early on. And I was like, look, I'm really up the wire here. Like, I don't mean to flop like last minute, but like I'm really struggling, so I won't be able to make tonight. She was like, don't worry about it. It's totally fine. Listen, why don't I book a wine place down the road from you? Just come down. We'll have a quick drink, half an hour. You need a break, and then just go back to work. And I was like, oh my God, thank you so much. A, for understanding. B, tolerating my bullshit, and that I knew sort of like she just got it. And like as bad as it is to say, sometimes you need that person who's just going to trust you in that respect and like just be like, look, I get it, don't worry about it, shit happens, because otherwise there's always going to be that expectation reality mismatch, and that's going to lead to problems. So yeah, there's Dr. Rupy's dating advice there. Just find someone who's like ultra reasonable.
No, like I feel like it was a journey, right? You went through some tough times, and you realized to. I think Mo would be. I love Mo. He's someone that I would love to speak to on this podcast, and
He'd be
he's kept
amazing,
it
dude.
like I think the happiness equation.
He's in town at the moment, actually.
I know
We should go for
it's
coffee on
existed.
Sunday.
Yeah. No, we'll it'll be awesome to hang out with him. But he's the explanation he gives for happiness is just so simple, and it's on the money. It's just like it is all about like making sure that you know your perception. You manage your expectations, right? And I think
Yeah.
what you did at that period was you just were upfront, right? So you managed your own expectations, and therefore you knew you were going to exceed what was going to happen. And so simple. But I appreciate you sharing it. And Rochelle is a G. She's a legend. And for her to be so self-aware as well, to realize her situation, like your situation, and not letting it affect her emotions. Like she's obviously, it was incredible what she offered there. So no, kudos to her. And
I got to remind her of that story a
so,
bunch of times, though. She's not perfect.
Okay. Yeah, no, Rochelle, you got some work. No, I'm not getting involved. You guys are awesome. So like, you went through a lot, right? In that period, and appreciate you sharing some of your dating stories. That's the first for the internet. Rupy's dating stories are now, we've got the first episode done for his dating life. But I think next I want to fast forward to your books, right? So you've now done 3 best-selling books. I've been lucky and blessed to be part of all the launches. So for people that don't know, basically Rupy writes a personal message in my books. The last one was actually a dick pic. Just thought I'd share that out. So I don't know if he's gonna let me keep that in, but it's
Are
true.
you gonna put that? You're gonna make that
so,
mint that into an NFT?
yeah, if you want, mate, we can do that. Yeah, you went all out on that dick pic, so yeah, I do have it. But anywho's, you've launched some incredible books.
Can I just clarify? I didn't
now,
send
right?
that. I just want to put that out there. I don't want to give people the impression that I'm the kind of person that sends sordid pictures. That's a joke.
Oh no, you did it. You did it in front of me. I said, "Hey man, send me some I said, I'm gonna play my pong." I said, "Hey dude, just write something really kind and loving, really make my heart feel good." And then that's what I got. So no, it's all good, man. I appreciate it. And
That's all right.
so yeah, look, basically, actually, what we could do as well on the YouTube one, we could actually show it live if the picture. But anywho's, so you've done 3 books, right? And I think we're in this era now where everyone is becoming more self-aware, more conscious, and what's beautiful to see is everyone's being more expressive, right, of what they went through, and I love it. And I think books are one of the most humbling, beautiful ways to put it out there, right? And you've been lucky to do 3 and 3 best-selling ones. So I'd love to for you to just share any advice for people that want to express themselves. Maybe it's in a writing format. Like you've done 3 best-selling books. Like what advice would you give to people that may want to write a book, may want to blog, but you've done 3 best-selling books. So any insights, even for me,
The best advice I can give to people is to literally just write. It's like anything that I've done, you got to get the reps in. So whether it's videoing yourself, whether it's podcasting, whether it's interviewing, whether it's picture taking, whether it's doing lives, you got to just get the reps in. There is no shortcut to anything. And if you're blessed to have a book deal tomorrow and you don't have the practice of writing, that book is going to be shit. And so getting to that point of when you get the book, you should have literally hundreds, if not thousands of hours of writing in you. So to put it into context, every week I would send a newsletter. Every week I'd be doing a blog. Every couple of days I'd be doing social media posts. Every week I'd be looking through research articles and summarizing them. And then I started interviewing people on the podcast, and having to prep for that. So it was just constant writing up to that point where I got the opportunity to express myself in the book. And don't get me wrong, it was still a very nerve-wracking imposter syndrome sort of inducing process. It always will be, because my ego is tied to this book, and I have to learn to let go of that ego, and it'll be a lot simpler. And I'm still learning how to do that day by day. But you got to just get really, really into the writing process. And the only way to do that is to just start. And you'll get loads of criticism, man. Like sometimes my grammar is off on my newsletter, and I have a little feedback section, and people remind me of that kind of stuff all the time. And it irritates me because with a newsletter, once it's out there, it's out there. You can't edit it. It's not like a blog post. It's like, exactly. You can't unsend, right? So it's those things, like those sort of uncomfortable situations that have helped me become a better writer. But honestly, man, it's about, you have to just start, you know?
Yeah. No, I love it. And I think what you're saying is like the best advice I always give to others as well. Yeah, just start. It sucks. It's hard. It's like, because that, I think, it's all those thoughts that, you said, like all those insecurities start coming out, right? And if you can go against it, that's great. And you said something about imposter syndrome. I think it's something that everyone faces because, you just have that unconfidence that is my material good enough?
Yeah.
What is, if you look back, was there anything that really stands out in your experience that you're like, hey, fuck you, imposter syndrome. I'm gonna, I don't care about you.
I think it's been more of a gradual process, if I'm honest. I think constantly, like, I'm pinching myself when, my book was like number one on all Amazon books the other day because there was a feature on BBC TV, and the way I'd cooked the recipe and talked about the formulation of the book 321 clearly got people's attention, and it just like went straight to number one. It stayed there for like, we must have sold like a couple of thousand books in a few hours. All that kind of stuff. Like, it's like, why, how, like all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I think when you find your true sort of like value in what you're doing, it doesn't really become about the numbers, the followers, or any of that kind of stuff. And that's where I'm finding imposter syndrome kind of wanes, because it's like, if not me, who? And why not me? And so, I feel like I've got to the level of emotional maturity where I can put stuff out there and be confident. And if it's not, I'm the first person to call myself out. So, we've said no to brand deals, for example, in a very superficial way of explaining this point. Like, we've said no to brand deals all the time because it doesn't align with my mission. We've said no to TV shows all the time because it doesn't align with my mission. So, all those different things refine exactly who and what I am, and also what we're doing as a company, and what makes sense. And that means that when you're doing that, the imposter syndrome sort of wanes. And I think also Kobe Bryant said something, I don't know if I mentioned this in a previous podcast, but Kobe Bryant said something about this in an interview where when you go out onto the basketball court and you're feeling nervous, it's not the nerves of you going out there and, you're worried about stuff. That's just your ego. It's just your ego. And when you learn to get rid of your ego, the nervousness goes, because you're just a channel. You're just literally like a vessel for your movement or your message or whatever it is, or your ability to flow out and whether it's entertaining people, whether it's helping people, whatever it is, you're just a vessel. So just remove the ego and the imposter syndrome wanes.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think another way to look at it is, I know whenever I'm put in a tough situation, it's like, it's that fear that creates that whenever whether it's public speaking or something really important, you get that heartbeat in you. I think it's either, one thing is either your ego, you're scared, it's that fear, or I find also it's just actually you care so much about what you're about to do because you're so tied to that purpose. You think it's so important. That's also it's actually a connection to that purpose because that purpose is so important, right? So it's a two-way thing.
That in itself, sorry to go on the stoic rant here or the slant, but the attachment to that is the issue. The attachment to the external,
that's true as well,
is sometimes the issue. And if you're too attached to something,
even internal though, even your purpose as well, right? You can be too attached to your purpose as well.
Absolutely, you can be, man.
So, and that's the weird thing, right? You're trying to save the world, and go for it.
Yeah. I'm just like, I it's a bit paradoxical because, you know, on the one hand, we're like, oh, you got to find your purpose, you got to find meaning, that's what's going to give you alignment. And then on the other hand, we're like, well, if you're too attached to it and you're too attached to these external outcomes, and they can be internal outcomes as well, then that's going to misalign you. I think it's really important to be clear, like, you know, we're not trying to suggest to everyone that they should become this middle path Buddha and you should just be like completely flat in your emotions, which I think is the teaching of a lot of Stoics. And actually, to get to that point, I think there is a healthy balance between all those different elements of what makes you a content person. So yeah, that the over attachment to an outcome or an external or, you know, your mission or whatever, that can also lead to a downfall in like your levels of happiness, I guess.
I think what you're saying is like something I truly experienced. It's just like, I think how I look at it is like, whether it's that fear or whether it's that connection to your purpose, it's you're going to feel something, right? Just let that feeling naturally happen. But realize it's just a feeling, right? And you're still, you know, you're watching those feelings come out and watch them, and like, you know, it might be fear, it might be excitement, but just watch them and let them happen. But really, you know, you're actually separate from both of them.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point.
Living.
It's the watching of your emotions is basically what they teach you in meditation. Like, you probably know more about this than me, but the ability to watch your thoughts and watch your attachments and watch your judgments and be calm and peaceful around that. That's sort of like the goal, I guess. And that's something I'm working on hard, you know?
I think that goal will never end, dude. So, all right. That's a good little thread. So, all right. So the other area I want to talk about is your podcasting, right? Your podcasting has gone incredibly well, right? You're getting 500,000 downloads a month. It's one of the top podcasts. You're one of the first people to actually like get in the podcast game when people are like, what the fuck's a podcast? You are literally like one of the first, like with your good mate Rangan as well. And I feel that was a big shift, big movement. Now we're doing another podcast, right? We're both co-hosting one together. I'd love to know, like, what would you have done different in the first? And I guess you'd hopefully bring to our one. Selfishly, I want this one to be bigger than your first one, the Doctor.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, man.
Let's see what happens. But like, yeah, what do you think? Yeah, what would you have done differently?
So I think I think it's important to start. I don't have any regrets about anything because at the time, if I went all in on podcasting, it would have been, there's always an opportunity cost with something else, right? Whether it's your time, your energy, your thought process. You know, if I'd just done podcasting 100%, I might not have had the capacity or the inclination to do the app and all the rest of the stuff that I have aspired to do. But let's just say, if I'll reframe your question for you. So if I had to do the podcast again with the goal of making it the best and biggest podcast, what would I do? I think that's basically what you're trying to ask me, right?
Yeah, and I think there's also the element of like fun. Oh, no, and there's also the element of like enjoying, right? Because, you know, once you have a podcast, you've got a formula of what works, right? And that's you now. People have got your persona. Hey, this is Rupy. They've boxed you, right? And you got to carry on playing that role. Whereas this time you've got a chance to create a new identity. It's a different side of Rupy. We're going quite personal, a bit more raw. You're a bit more crazier on this podcast, I'd probably say. But yeah, I guess, yeah. But I want to know, like, yeah, what would you have done differently?
So
I guess, what are you doing differently on this one? I guess that's very better way as
okay,
well.
What am I doing different on this one? So I would say I'm still very much my personality. I think it's very important to be authentic self in the podcasting environment, right? People are giving you their most valuable resource, their attention. Their attention, people don't realize it. I think we're getting a bit sort of more aware of this idea of attention as currency, but it is literally our most precious resource. So much so that the smartest and biggest companies are all vying for your attention, whether that be through your digital devices, through screens, whatever. Always. And podcasting, if you think about it, through the analog nature of it, the low tech nature of it, it is where you have the deepest connection with the host, with the content, whatever, because it's going literally into your ears and it's putting your brain to work, right? It's different to a TV where your senses are being sort of bombarded and you don't really have the capacity to think on top of that. This is going straight into your ears, and you're thinking about, if you're not watching this on YouTube, for example, you're thinking about the scenario, or thinking about what we've just talked about. Like there is like a unique and special relationship that you have with listeners. And I think that's something that is super precious and something that should never be disregarded. So with regard to the way I went into it completely naive. I was sort of forced to do a podcast by my publisher, and I would have never have started a podcast had they not told me to do so. I never really was an avid podcast listener myself, if I'm honest. But then when I started doing my own, I started listening to more, and I was like, this is a special medium. It's very distinct from everything out there. And I enjoy it because you can have a more nuanced conversation, which is less shouty than on social media. It's a lot more relaxed. You can do it in your own time. You know, I could go for a walk and I can listen to it. And it's something that I feel energizes me at the end of it, rather than something that I feel like I've wasted a whole bunch of time. Like that feeling that you have when you just like been scrolling through Instagram or TikTok or Twitter, like for half an hour, just for like, oh my God, where did that go? Never have that feeling with podcasts. I always feel like refreshed, energized, pumped, creative. You know, it's so powerful as a medium. And that's why I do love it. My personality, I reckon, is slightly, it's a different part of my personality. I wouldn't say like one is raw and one is unhinged. I would say like, that's more like Rupy academic mode. Let me try and educate the listener on nutritional medicine, how they can better themselves. This is more like, okay, it's a bit more of a personal podcast, but it's also another passion of mine, which is, you know, lends itself to like being animated and being sort of passionate and loud, and you know, just throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks. Like I do really enjoy that kind of culture of entrepreneurship, and I think that's hopefully what will come through in this sort of podcast, because the two audiences don't necessarily overlap.
Look, at this point now, you've got 3 best-selling books. You're a social media hit, right? You've got you're on the BBC TV, and now today, well, probably, you know, in the last 12 months, you've been focusing on creating this app, right? I've been involved because I've been involved in giving some advice through this app, but you are creating the Doctor's Kitchen app, which has gone live now.
Yeah.
Why do it, dude? Like you've already, you know, as you mentioned before, like you're making really good income. Life is pretty good, and now you're trying to be a tech entrepreneur, which
I know.
Obviously I love. But like why put yourself through this phase, like this new phase?
I try and answer that question every day. You know, I think I've got to constantly like lean into that growth mindset, remind myself of the grander vision, because the grander vision is to help people, you know, get better with nutritional medicine. It's to educate people. It's to make it easy to help people eat consistently well. Because that, I think, I need to fall in love with the problem, and the problem is people don't know how to eat well every day, and that's the consistency element that no one's really honing in on. People usually go on about, okay, I can help you lose weight, or I can help you, you know, eat keto, or I can help you like go plant-based. Like that's not the problem is we can't eat well every day because the environment is conspiring against us. And being faced with this problem every single day and me just putting out informational content, there was a misalignment in my sort of grand vision. And I felt like, A, I'm not really getting to the root of the problem. And B, even though I'm using these tech platforms that have huge reach, I'm basically, there's a high noise to signal ratio when you're putting stuff out on social media. You can go viral on TikTok, you can get an audience on Instagram, but at the end of the day, you never really have that direct communication with people. And I saw what calm and Headspace have done for meditation. I've seen what some incredible apps have done for like the fitness community, like Strava, running, and Kayla Sweat. I was really inspired by a number of those sort of founders. And I kind of just kept on being led back down to this path of, you got to go into tech. You got to go into tech. You got to really create a tech company if you're trying to get scale and to have that direct communication that can truly help people. I ran a few experiments, right? Like, I don't know if you remember, I did this little like fruit and veg box collaboration to see, okay, would that help people? Like, yeah. Would that help people, like getting fruit and vegetables literally delivered straight to the door? Would a salad box help? Like, you can order it via a supermarket, via Ocado and stuff. Would that help? Is that affordable enough? I had a bunch of other ideas about like a web-based platform that would link you up with like nutritionists and stuff. Would that work? So I did a load of like little tests here and there, but I kept coming back to the central idea of like, you got to create like an app, an ecosystem that makes it easier for people to eat well, order their ingredients, and know what they should be eating for their own health goals. And so that's basically what I've been working on for the past like 2.5 years, is the Headspace for healthy eating. And I've been lamenting about like the whole process with you. Yeah, you've been pretty much with me every step of the way, giving me feedback, telling me what I need to look out for. I've bootstrapped it, and you could be giving me advice about like funding and all that kind of stuff. So, it's a labor of love, man. It's it's an enjoyable process.
So, but it's a big change as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a big change in that, like, you've been giving out content for free through books, and now, and I'm a member, so I see the value on the other side of the app, right? The content, the recipes are now accessible. You're, showing us how to cook it. But I guess, like, was there a fear that, like, wow, this is, now you're building a community, because now this is a real community you're building a technology app, which is bloody hard. Like, creating a first, like, I remember creating my first few apps, God, it was really tough. So there's so many new things that you're having to do. Yes, you had a community, but this is now a membership community. The value of the content has to be great, which I know you're delivering, but the expectations have gone higher. I guess what out of those was like the one that were you most scared of? Was it building the tech, or was it, charging people for a membership? Like, what was the one where you're like, okay, because like there's a lot of people like you who want to do what you're doing. So like, but what was the hardest step for you that you were like, crap, this is going to be quite scary?
Yeah, it's a really good question, man. I think it was definitely a mixture of all of those different things. Probably the scariest thing is meeting the expectations that I assumed people would have. Actually, what I've realized is my expectations for the app are far higher than other people's. And I think that's a common trap for a lot of entrepreneurs. They feel like their product has to have incredible features, amazing capabilities before they can even launch. Whereas in reality, you should really be launching with a simplified product, a really, really simplified product. Actually, when we launched, the one of the reasons that I satisfied myself that we couldn't launch any earlier is because I've already built a community which has its positives, and that you have a willing audience to cater for, like, off the bat. But at the same time, that audience will have high expectations. I've written Sunday Times best-selling books. The recipes are all shit hot. The quality of the content is like, super, super high. So that has to be reflected in everything that we do in the app. It can't just be like a few recipes pieced together. Like, every detail, every feature has to be really, really fully thought out as to why they're getting value from it. And it's a really high value product for the price. I mean, it's $49.99 a year, and you get the equivalent of like 5 cookbooks, new recipes, the ability to filter, increase and decrease the serving size, step-by-step imagery for every single recipe, like all these different elements of it that you go in at the high level. But I look at the app, I'm like, oh my God, we've got so much work to do, because there's so many other features that I want to build. But I have to kind of check myself all the time about like, okay, what do people actually really want, first of all? And also, you're delivering a lot already. So like, just calm down a bit, just focus on like being steady, slow, and considered with your product roadmap. but yeah, so that was definitely an element of fear, the sort of charging people directly for the product. And I had to sort of satisfy to myself that it is a premium product, which it is. And I will always give stuff for free across socials. People will always find value from Doctor's Kitchen and other avenues. It's just, it won't be as easy as I'm able to make it and as I can do with the app. And that kind of funds the future aspirations I have for the company. So right now, just to contextualize it for people who haven't checked it out yet, it's a very simple recipe library that you can filter according to health goals. But in the future, the way I want this app to work is in line with the way technology is going in the future. It makes just the cooking and shopping experience completely seamless. So you can be like, okay, this app already knows who lives in my household, how many kids I've got, what my allergies are, what my nutritional needs are, how many meals I need for next week. And you can just go to Alexa or Google, hey, could you get me Doctor's Kitchen recipes for Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday? Send that to me on Monday and make sure it tastes nice. And it already knows what your preferences are, your tastes, everything is just seamless. You don't have to scroll through Ocado and figure out, what should I be eating because my cholesterol is slightly high this month, or my CGM monitor beeped when I ate some oats, so maybe I shouldn't have so many oats in my diet. None of that stuff. Everything is all integrated into the app, so it just makes everything seamless. So that's the vision of where we want to get to. But I got to, hold myself back. All right, okay, we're going to start slow. We're going to build this community. We're going to start from first principles and just see if we can build up to that level. But that's basically why I started the app.
No, I love it. And such a thorough, you covered so much points there. And I just want to recap on some of them. I feel that, what you've just said is something that I can relate to, as well as a lot of other entrepreneurs, as in you set your expectations, your bar was actually higher than the market or others. It's crazy. The first version of your product can be basic, and it's actually the best thing is you're iterating along the way. I see a lot of people just go all guns blazing, unleash something, and it's actually so far the mark. But I love the way that you are self-aware that actually, my expectations were really high, and actually if you just push something out, whether it's if you want to do a blog or whatever it is, a product, just send something out, right? And I think for you to be aware, I love the way you're also just so passionate about, once you did have that membership site, which you do have now, just delivering that high quality content, because the bar is higher, but I can feel it in you that you've got this, you really want to make sure that your members are really, really happy. And I love that. I know we're coming towards the end of the episode, and I think what I'd love to know is what's at the moment, what's keeping you up right now? Because I want you to be open with me and for others. I know this journey's challenging and tough. What's keeping you up right now?
For me, what's keeping me up right now is building a team and separating myself out from the processes. Right. So right now, I have to be the interviewer for the podcast. I have to be across all the recipes and ensure that they're all in line with the health goals. I have to make sure that our tech team are building the right features at the right time, that are responding to all the feedback that I get via DMs and all the other channels for feedback that we have. But I want to gradually and methodically step out of the multiple roles. I need to fire myself from all those different roles so I can focus on what my strengths are. Because I'll be very honest, my strength is not going to be building tech products. My strength is going to be the ability to communicate, understand needs, think about where people have pain points and barriers, and try to think about ideas in which we can overcome those, as well as being across the nutritional medicine space and all that kind of that good stuff. My strengths are probably cooking and communicating the health benefits via video as well. And there's something I truly enjoy. So to answer your question, I think it's the the process of separating myself out from all these roles and ensuring that whoever takes those roles is as aligned and as passionate and driven as I can be. They might be more capable than me, that's fine, but like they need to have that sort of same alignment. I know it's sort of like a unicorn. It's like wishful thinking. The fact that you're going to find someone that you will have the same energy as you, and that's, you know, that might not always be the case, but you can at least try, and that's basically what I'm working on.
No, I love it, dude, and your journey continues, and I just want to it's been a really enjoyable 2 episodes, and just like diving in. And I think for me, what I've taken away is that like your purpose of helping people live healthier has evolved, right? You first started with the situation with your mum. You're probably trying to save her. Then it went to people through like being a GP, like helping humans as a doctor. Then it was through food, and now it's through technology and scaling. So like what's incredible is that your purpose has evolved, right? And I think this is a really important point, because some people are like, hey, what's my purpose? Whereas like your purpose does evolve and change, right? And it may get bigger, it may go sideways, it doesn't really matter. But as long as you realize what you're really passionate about and you care about, and it does evolve. And I think your story is so beautiful in just showing how it changed and evolved. And I think what I really loved is that you're always constantly going out your comfort zone. I think it's one of the most beautiful things in life is you're constantly learning and evolving. Like, you were a doctor, then you became a social media person, a podcaster, a book writer, now a technology entrepreneur. Like, you're constantly putting yourself out there. And I think for us humans, it's you either put yourself out there and stretch yourself, or you're going to essentially shrink. I feel like you're not going to, like you have to grow, right? And I feel like you've been the epitome of that. And I think hopefully the listeners can see that. You're pretty good at relationship advice and like being open and transparent in the boundaries. So Rupy, the dating coach, maybe that could be another podcast for you. But I feel like that transparency and the communication is so important. So if you are single and an entrepreneur, like keeping that boundary, I think is important. And obviously finding someone who is aware of the life you're living, right? In the case of Rochelle. So I think that was great. And I think fourthly, I just want to thank you for being so open and also being a great communicator. We can see, and you've been open about it. Your communication has evolved as well. When you first started, I remember seeing your first few videos. They're probably like me speaking and trying to put words together. But like, I feel that the way you communicate things is so articulate and easy to understand. So it's just very easy on the ear. So thank you so much for sharing that. And on the next episode, we'll be interviewing one of our friends. We're still deciding who it's going to be. But yeah, on the next few series, we will be interviewing some of our friends. We'll have some chats. We'll see what people want to hear more about, whether it's us or our guests. We'll mix and match. But yeah, I think that's the end for this episode. Rupy, is there anything else you'd like to share?
No, that was a great summary, man. Like, I think everyone's on their own journey. I think one thing I want to heighten, I just want to punctuate the point on is the evolving passion and the evolving sort of journey. Because I think if I'd started with this big, hairy, audacious goal at the start, I probably wouldn't have got to where I am at this point. And maybe I'll be saying the same thing in like the next 5 years. What has the goal got even bigger, or is it plateaued or whatever? Like, I think it's always important to stay just slightly out of your comfort zone. Maybe not completely. You don't have to like go completely out. Like my starting point was like, I just want to put some videos out there so I can have a more efficient conversation with my patients. I can just direct them to this video that I've already done, teach them how to make oats and teach them how to make some healthy recipes, and that's it. That was literally the goal. And like now it's like helping 1 billion people leverage the power of food to prevent illness. Like, it's a very, very big difference in the space of about 6 years. So yeah, just to sort of heighten that. And yeah, man, you've done a great job interviewing, dude.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And look, the most important thing is that hopefully there's some gems or little gifts of thoughts for people. And I think, the most important thing is just starting small, right? And that's what you did. And now you're here today, and it all started small. And I just hope that if there is this feeling in someone to do something, just start small. And it might be something, a side thing, it might become something bigger like for yours, but either way it's all beautiful, right? Just starting is the game. And yeah, I guess that's a good way to wrap up episode 4. And yeah, it's been good hanging out, pal, and I'll see you very soon.
Sick, man.